Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Bicep May community call. It is our 5th birthday as of a couple weeks ago. Pretty exciting. We have a special edition today. We'll still be going over updates and demos, but we'll have some time to focus on the history of Bicep and special thanks to a lot of the people who have contributed. All right, is Emily here?
Hi, good morning, everybody. Okay, yeah, as Stephanie said, I put together a couple of slides to celebrate our birthday together. So I know we can't be together in person, but I thought we'd kick off with a short happy birthday video if you just want to play the first 20 or 30 seconds of this, Stephanie.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday. Happy birthday to you.
That's awesome, Stephanie, to end it there. Awesome. And then I thought we'd kick off with some bicep trivia, as Stephanie said. So collected some fun facts from both community members and team members on some of our favorite parts of the bicep history. And I'm curious to see how many of these we'll all know together. So how it'll work is I'll have the trivia slide up first with a blank, and then everyone in the chat can guess what they think the blank is, and then I'll reveal it on the next slide. And then there'll be major bragging rights for whoever can get all of the trivia questions. Okay, what was bicep almost called? It's a one-word answer. And guess in chat. I'm seeing some good guesses.
For a little bit of context, I think a couple years ago, we came to you guys for feedback because the marketing team did some research and told us Bicep should be renamed to this. And we came to you guys and everyone said they hated it, which we're really happy that we were able to record that and let the marketing team know that, no, let's keep it on Bicep.
I think it
Okay.
was actually a private meeting with the MVPs, not that there was any NDA or that's still valid
Oh,
at this
shoot.
point.
Okay.
No, it's
That makes
fine.
sense.
Just now we can reveal what's behind the curtain, and we can thank the MVPs for weighing in on this one.
Okay, drum roll, please. Let's see what it was almost called. Thanks to the MVPs for saving us. Arrow code. It looks like one person in the chat had it correct. And yes, bicep went out for being punchier, and yes, it is a play on arm. Yes, thank you, Sam. Okay, next trivia question. Okay, this one is a double header. Did you know the official bicep logo is a blank on a blue blank? And the second blank here is the shape that it's on, the geometrical name. Oh, got one very perceptive guess in the chat if people were paying attention to the first slide of our call today. Okay, we have some good shape people here. Final guesses? Okay, drum roll and reveal, Stephanie. Yes, it's a robot arm on a blue hexagon. Are there any marketing stories from back in the day about that? Any of the original teammates?
There's no thought behind the hexagon, other than our designer at the time, Matt LeGrander, I guess liked hexagons. But the arm, there was a whole debate about the arm. Should it be a man's arm or a woman's arm? Can you tell if the emoji is a specific gender of a bicep, the bicep logo? So he said, let's avoid all of that. Let's do a robot arm. Nobody can argue with it. Nobody can personify it. So that's how we settled on the robot.
Awesome. And I think it's kind of cool. It's like gears turning in the machines of Azure. or something less cheesy.
Yep, it's held up well.
And I guess to many of the points in the chat, a hexagon is made up of multiple shapes. So it does have triangles and maybe some squares in there too. So everyone was right on that one. It's a gimme. Okay, next up. Okay, another double header, keeping us on our toes.
Oh, God.
We're guessing the first commit message and the most recent commit message. So you can do 1 and 2. Oh, that would have been great if it would have been happy birthday for the most recent. Okay, we're seeing some patterns. Looks like a lot of people are up for initial commit. Hello World, another classic. Flexing would be a great one. They're both the same. Oops. How much time do I have to look at the Git history? I think that's our cue to switch the slide before anybody looks at the Git history. Let's reveal. Yes, it was a very classic initial commit for our first one. When I went back to look at it, I was hoping it would be something like flexing, but it was just classic. And then as of late last night, the most recent commit message was bump bicep version to 0.36. So I'm sorry if that's not up to date as of 9:07 this morning, but that was our most recent commit. And I think that was by one of our newer engineers, our most recent commit. So full circle. And I think the original was maybe by Anthony. But correct me in the chat if you're either of these people. And then we'll have a bit of celebration at the end as well once we get through some of our updates. But I just wanted to share the impact of Bicep by the numbers over the past 5 years. We've had over 200 contributors. We'll be thanking each and every one of you towards the end, but I want to say it again now, how much we appreciate everything you've put into the language. Although we do have 1.2K open issues that we are striving to get to every day and triaging as a team, and we hear your comments and we are really value them and always coming back to them. We've closed over 3,000, so that's an exciting number to look back on, and striving to close 1.2K more. Our first commit date was September 2020, although the language itself was kind of conceived. Oh, I actually believe that was supposed to be May 2020. Sorry about that. It was May 12th, 2020. And then our latest release was 036, which was today's release. So we're about to get into all of that, but stay for the end for a very special surprise about the birthday. One of our community members shared with us. And so we're super, super excited to show that off and then take a moment to thank all of our lovely contributors. So stick around.
All right, thanks, Emily. Oh, I think my computer is very slow. Let me know if I'm breaking up or if it stops sharing. So for our O.36 release, I guess it was released today, or will be released. I didn't know, but should be released either today or tomorrow. We have some pretty cool new features and bug fixes that I'd like to share. The first one, Bicep Snapshot command group. Anthony will demo this feature, so I'll leave it to him to explain. Our second one, that one's going to be experimental. Like I said, Anthony will explain. The second experimental feature is the module identity feature flag. Our engineer Tate, who is also the one who released this past release, he built this feature to allow you to assign an identity object to a module. It requires the feature flag module identity, but yeah, please try it out. Let us know how it is. Here's a little code snippet on the side of which parameters would be included in this identity object. We'll be adding more built-in functions to be able to convert params to the identity object in the later releases. But yeah, please add any comments. We're excited about this. Another update that we recently added the user principal name or UPN to the deployer function as a return type. We added this in January, and we're adding support for the function output now as a return type. So I think some people are excited about this this feature, adding user principal name a couple months ago, and now we're adding more things to it. We found a small bug when generating a bicep param file from any parameter using user-defined types. It would originally return just empty single quotes. We fixed this issue to be able to handle user-defined types better in bicep param files. So thank you, Old, for bringing this up. Please let us know if you guys find any more bugs with bicep param files. We've been trying to target as many as possible so we can move closer to releasing the extendable bicep param files in GA. Next one, we also found that the get secret function did not correctly handle decompilation in the bicep param file. It originally returned a question mark, but we've now added support for decompiling the parameters for the get secret function in bicep. I don't know how many people this affected. Alex was actually the one who brought this up, and it's really great because we wouldn't have known. So if you find any bugs or any issues when you're going through bicep, please open the issues in the GitHub repo. We always try to target those as fast as possible. A couple more, some linter rules. The maximum, or let's see. The use secure value for secure inputs linter rule was incorrectly flagging list keys and null values. So these are fixed. Thank you guys for bringing this up. Like I said, please bring up as many bugs as possible. A couple more linter rule fixes. The maximum number of variables used. That linter rule is now disabled for library modules, mainly for files not meant to be deployed, instead used as import targets. The parameters of this is to ignore a file containing more than 512 variables when no param output, resource, and module declarations are present in the file, and when there's at least one variable in the file exported. We saw that some people were having issues with this. It is now fixed. And there's also a new linter rule to warn on unused compile time imports when an alias is unused. Both of these were done by an external contributor, so thank you so much, Gabriel. We see that you've been doing some PRs and putting a lot of comments and doing some design, and we really appreciate you. So I don't know if you're here on this call or if you watch this later, thank you. We really appreciate it. All right, our next topic is local deploy. Local deploy has been out for a couple months now, maybe longer, but we hadn't gotten the chance to demo this until now. Anthony was able to record this, so I'm gonna play this demo. Let me know if you can't hear it. Yeah.
Hello, my name's Anthony on the Bicep engineering team, and today I wanted to give people a quick overview of local deploy, along with some interesting scenarios that you can accomplish with local deploy. So what is Bicep local deploy? This is a new experimental feature we've created for Bicep. As many of you know already, you can use Bicep to deploy ARM resources. You can deploy MS Graph resources with the MS Graph extension, and you can also deploy Kubernetes resources with the Kubernetes extension. So all of those capabilities, those require you to have an Azure account, and those require you to create an Azure deployment to accomplish, even the MS Graph and the Kubernetes examples. Local deploy actually basically runs the entire deployment client side. So inside the Bicep CLI itself. So that you can run entirely without an Azure account. You can run entirely like on a client machine without an internet connection. You can run it in a CI pipeline or a CD pipeline. So I'm going to walk you through one of these samples. The first one to show you is this GitHub OIDC sample. This repo I will share with everyone. It's all on my GitHub account. So let's start by taking a look at the main Bicep file. So what is new here? We have target scope equals local. This is basically telling Bicep that the file I'm trying to deploy here is not going to execute on Azure, it's just going to execute locally. I've got extension AZ, which is me importing the Azure namespace, which is available by default in non-local Bicep. And I've got this local extension, which is a proof of concept extension I created that allows you to do scripting like bash scripting and PowerShell scripting in Bicep. So first of all, we've got our script resource here. This is a bash script, and I'm using it to obtain an auth token, which then I'm then going to use to perform my GitHub operations. Next, I've got my Azure module. This one is interesting because it is actually, if we look inside this module, it's actually a standard ARM deployment. So when I actually go and deploy this module, it's actually going to go and use my Azure account, and it's going to run just a regular deployment on Azure. So that's why I'm passing in a subscription ID for the scope here. Finally, I've got my Azure module, and then I'm then going to interact with the GitHub API using this GitHub module. So let's quickly take a look at the Azure module. In here, this is a standard ARM scope. So we've got a subscription scope deployment. I'm importing the MSGraph extension. I'm explicitly importing the AZ extension, but this is the same as the standard AZ namespace, which is available by default in Bicep today. So inside this file, I'm using the MSGraph extension to deploy a MSGraph application. I'm setting up federated identity credentials. I'm creating a GitHub service principal, an MSGraph service principal. I'm then creating a resource group, and I'm giving my newly created application owner access on that resource group. So all in all, this is going to allow me to configure my GitHub actions, the ability to connect to my Azure account and perform Azure operations in that resource group using OIDC. So finally, I'm outputting the config that I need for that OIDC connection. We've got tenant ID, subscription ID, and client ID, which are the requirements if you've set up OIDC before. So going back to my main bicep file, I've output those values, and the next thing I need to do is access them in my GitHub module and create the repository. So I'm using my GitHub token. This is my configuration for the GitHub repo, and this is the OIDC config. So if we take a look here, so again, we're running this one locally, target scope equals local. I'm configuring my GitHub extension with the token I created. I'm creating a GitHub repository here. I'm then taking those different OIDC configurations and setting them up as GitHub action secrets here. And then finally, just to demonstrate it, I'm also adding some collaborators, giving people write permission to my repository that I'm creating. So while I talk through the rest, I'm just going to quickly run this deployment so you can see it running. So while that's running, let's talk over the bicep param file. I've got my configuration for my resource group, my subscription ID for my Azure subscription, the name of the resource group, and the location for the resource group. I've also got my configuration for the GitHub repo I want to create. This is my GitHub username, and this is the name of the repo I want to create. And these are the two collaborators I want to give write access to that repo. Finally, there's the bicep config. So obviously, I've got my experimental feature enabled local deploy. And then I've got, if you're used to working with the MSGraph extension, I've got the standard MSGraph extension enabled here. What is new is I've got my local extension I created and my GitHub extension. These are fully open source, so if you want to look at how an extension is created, you can look at these repos yourself, and that includes everything from the actual extension code to the automation you need to publish it and make it available through an ACR instance. So this is aliasing my two custom extensions I've created to local and GitHub, which is what allows me to access them with the extension keyword here. Finally, implicit extensions. This is the other thing you probably haven't seen before. That is, with Bicep being Azure focused, the Azure extension or the Azure namespace is imported by default. When I'm running locally, I don't want the Azure namespace to be imported by default. So implicit extensions here is basically saying unimport the Azure namespace unless it's explicitly imported, which is why if we look at some of these files, we've got extension AZ is explicitly imported. Okay, so we can see our local deployment finished. I've just added these two outputs just so I can show you what things look like. Let's click through to the repo I've created. So this is not particularly interesting. It's a completely blank repo. But if we look at the settings here, we can see that the two collaborators I wanted to give access to, I've given access to. And then if we look at secrets and variables, we can see those 3 repository secrets that we need for the OIDC connection have been created. Secondly, let's take a look at the Azure portal. I will show you what the resource group looks like. So this is the resource group I've created. If we look at access control, we should be able to see the RBAC assignment that was created. So we've got our Bicep local deploy test service principles being created here, and it's been given owner access to the resource group as configured in the Bicep file. And if we click through, we should be able to see the MS Graph application that was created as well. So that's a scenario which I personally use a lot, just for, it's fairly common to want to configure a GitHub repo to have the actions within that repo to have access to Azure to be able to, for example, deploy more resources. Second example I want to show, I'm just going to walk through pretty quickly, is local deploy Kubernetes. So this is something pretty different. It's deploying a set of Kubernetes resources locally. So again, pretty similar. We've got the local extension imported, and I'm using that script resource again to execute a bash script. This time I'm using the kubectl command to access the kube config for a local Kubernetes cluster I have installed. And in my AKS store module, I'm deploying a pretty large AKS example or set of Kubernetes example resources. This one is just deploying I think it's a front-end application with some backing resources for a kind of like demo store. So again, let's run this one. And then while that's running in my Bicep param, nothing particularly interesting to see here because I haven't configured any parameters. But in my Bicep config, again, I'm using that same local extension for scripting, and I've got my Kubernetes extension for talking to Kubernetes resources. So we can see everything's deployed here. And if I click through to my front-end application, here is my Contoso pet store, which is the dummy application. Okay, that's all I had. So as I mentioned earlier, this is experimental functionality, but it is, I have the nightly version of Bicep installed right now, but this will all be available in the upcoming Bicep release. So as of the June release, you should be able to install the Bicep CLI and access this functionality yourself. And you'll be able to deploy any of these samples that I've created here, which I'll share with you soon. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Alex. Last community call, we took a quick survey on how some of you are using Copilot for Bicep. And I wanted to update because there was quite a few questions in the chat about what tools we're offering. So I'm not going to provide an in-depth overview or make any recommendations today. We're still working to improve the tools, but I do want to just overview what's available. So if you're interested, you can start playing around with these and then share some feedback. So Alex, on the next slide, please. So the exciting part and the challenge with some of the Copilot support is that because Bicep has been around for 5 years, it feels like a long time for us. We're celebrating it today. But that also means that there's not a ton of training data available for the base models on Bicep. And so we are working internally to figure out where we can provide extra context and improve the experience. We have heard some feedback on the models not understanding Bicep very well on their own. And so we've made a few steps towards this with some partner teams. I think the slides, could you hit refresh, Alex, on that? We have a couple of tools that we've been building internally within VS Code, as well as within the Azure portal. to support Bicep more directly. And I've collected all of these into a GitHub issue so that you can refer back to them. And I also wanted to call them out in today's call. So we're very excited that last week we announced GA for the GitHub Copilot for Azure. We have a link for this on the slides, and I'll add all of these links in the chat as well. And so this includes all of the functionality that we spoke about last time for the Azure chat, as well as the Copilot agent with Azure context. Again, we're just at the early stages of supporting Bicep and all of this, but this is where you can find additional Bicep context today, as well as within the Azure portal. As I mentioned, we've been working our Bicep team with the portal to provide additional context there. If you go to any other model, for example, ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, Anthropic's Claude. Oh, no sound. Can you hear me, Fred? Alex, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Sorry about that. I misunderstood the comment in the chat. If you go to any of these other base models, they will not have Bicep context built in. And so these tools, or they will have some amount, and that may get better, but what we have control over is these tools for now. They might expand, it might tweak in the future, and we'll keep you updated. But I just wanted to share where you can find this information today. And please, as you try them, share your feedback with us in this Copilot feedback form. This is your feedback last time has directly influenced how we're thinking about our planning for this, and it will continue to influence it. So please share, and please share which endpoint you are using. So if you're within VS Code using the chat function or ask, I think they call it, or you're within the portal, let us know so that we can then tailor that experience to what you need. And the more specific you can be with examples as to what is going right or what is going wrong, again, the better we can tweak our system. Great, that's it for the Copilot topic. Mostly just wanted to give an update on what we covered kind of ad hoc in the comments last time and make it more formal.
Awesome. Thanks, Emily.
Thanks. And then I think I have one more on testing. If you want to do next slide, please.
Okay, Emily, you're up again.
Up again. This one's a preview topic. These were both short, but we wanted to hit both of them as we're doing some user research in the space. So for the testing and validation, we'll hopefully be sharing more in the coming months about this, but I wanted to take a quick poll in the chat. If you can open the next slide, please, Alex. I wanted to give an overview of how we've been thinking about, or how I've been thinking, and the team is starting to think about testing phases to make sure that our mental map is kind of tracking how all of our users are using testing. And so the main phases that we've identified is pre-deployment. And you can see here the process of authoring a Bicep code in your IDE. Then during deployment, which is when your resources are actually being sent to ARM and being created. And then post-deployment, which is, of course, after like your monitoring stages afterwards. And so I'm going to submit a quick poll in the chat right now, or it should pop up on your screen. If you could share with us which testing phase or validation phase, if any, if you've been thinking about validation at all, which phases are important to you, and where would you like to see more updates or more work or comments from us as we start to explore how we can better validate Bicep. I suppose I should have added an option for no validation or testing. If that's the case, please mention in chat, maybe with some context. That would be really helpful. Looks like we have 30 responses so far. I'll give it another minute. Okay, 30 more seconds and then we'll close the poll. Looks like we're still creeping up in the responses. Okay, 3, 2, 1. I'm sharing the responses now. I think I might have just took over screen share by accident there.
Okay.
But it looks like about 68% of 41 respondents are interested in pre-deployment. During deployment and post-deployment both have some interest, but I'm seeing pre-deployment kind of coming out on top. So that's helpful to keep in mind as we again start thinking more about testing. I have an overview of all of the testing features or validation features we've explored to some capacity, like validate, what if, the experimental test and assert. We can get into all of that in a future call, but just wanted to take a quick pulse on the room as we continue to think about that. If you have any questions about testing, feel free to add them in the chat and I can respond with some of those features that I mentioned. Alex, could you reshare, please? I also had a couple of examples of these testing phases, which I perhaps should have shared first, but we'll just flash them up on the screen. And so what do we... Pardon me.
Is this the slide you want to be on, Emily?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So what do we mean by pre-deployment? This could look like validating that parameters include expected components before you actually begin the deployment process. It could be validating, this is the second example here does not exist yet, but this is an example of what may be possible with testing, the kind of things that we're looking into. Validating that a deployment is compliant with the policy, one that is able to assess before deployment. Not all of them might be. During deployment might be validating that resources are deploying in a particular relation to one another that you would expect, and then halting the deployments if it's not what you would expect. And then post-deployment might be monitoring the health of your created resources. And again, we're trying to figure out where Bicep can best serve folks in this pipeline, but it's helpful to understand where you're looking for support. So if you have any additional comments based on this description, please add them in the chat. Great, that's it from me. Alex, if you want to click the next slide.
Cool. So this is another video demo.
Hi, my name's Anthony on the Bicep engineering team. Today I wanted to introduce a new capability we've built for Bicep as an experimental feature. That's called Bicep Snapshot, and that's going to be available in the upcoming Bicep 0.36 release. So for those of you unfamiliar with snapshot testing, I think one challenge that people often face when working with very complicated Bicep infrastructure deployments is that, to accomplish some refactoring, you often need to do you often need to touch a lot of different files. You have your Bicep parameters file, you have your kind of complex set of modules, and you're often kind of taking values, modifying them, passing them down, using expressions, and it can become a little unclear sometimes, I think, where, this value being changed in this Bicep parameter, how does it actually interact with this module, like, 4 nested modules deep? Does it actually accomplish the thing I thought it was going to, or did I make a mistake somewhere? So Bicep Snapshot, the idea here is that we basically create a normalized view of all of the resources in my deployment. We resolve as many of those expressions as we can. And so here's an example of the format that it generates. The actual file itself is not really something that we expect users to interact with too much. So the real kind of main goal here is that it's a normalized view of resources. It's good for diffing. It doesn't change with, it's resilient to refactoring. So if you move a resource from one Bicep file to another, as long as the actual resource contents are the same, that shouldn't result in a diff in the snapshot. And the reasons for that are that we want, it's kind of intentional that we want these snapshots to be easy to kind of look at and see if, a change has been made to the infrastructure file, then what is the actual impact on the snapshot itself? So they should work well with tools like git diff or code review tools. So just to demonstrate the capabilities, I've got a couple of bash scripts I created. These are really just wrappers around the Bicep Snapshot CLI command. I've got snap validate, which is calling Bicep Snapshot with mode validate. And I've got Bicep Snapshot without mode validate, which is going to overwrite the snapshot. Validate is actually going to create a new snapshot, compare it to the one here checked in, and if the two are the same, it's going to log snapshot validation successful. If there are any differences, it's going to show me the differences, and it's going to tell me that the validation failed. One thing to note that's interesting is I'm passing in my subscription ID and I'm passing in a resource group name. I'm passing in the location. All of these things are useful for generating the snapshot because it gives me more concrete information about the resources that are going to be deployed. So it gives me the actual resource ID in full rather than kind of leaving variables in place. So let's go ahead and run those bash scripts. First of all, let's run snap validate. This should tell me there are no changes. So snapshot validation successful. It logs a bunch of warnings about Bicep diagnostics. Snap overwrite, again, not particularly interesting right now because it should just generate the exact same snapshot because my snapshot is updated. So just to give you an idea of how this could be used, I've got some changes stashed. So this is kind of, pretending I'm a developer who has made a set of changes across various different infrastructure files. In this case, what I'm doing is simulating, enabling, making my zone redundancy configurable and enabling zone redundancy in prod and having a test environment where zone redundancy is disabled. Often it's convenient to save money by, not having zone redundant resources in places where you don't need them, such as your test environment. So this is just an example of like a typical change that someone might make to their infrastructure files. I think what is challenging here is that, because of the amount of modules involved, I'm renaming, I'm changing the kind of usage of parameters. And so looking over the diff, it's not necessarily obvious to the person reviewing that, this is all going to result in the intended effect, which is in prod, zone redundancy is enabled. So now let's try, now that I have all these changes made, one thing you'll notice is my snapshot I haven't changed. So I've gone and made all my infrastructure changes, but I haven't yet updated the snapshot. So let's run snap validate now to see what happens. So now we are able to generate a new snapshot, and we know that the snapshot is different to the one that's been checked in. And so here our snapshot validation fails because we saw changes that we weren't expecting. And for convenience, we also kind of log the actual changes themselves in a what if like format, just to make it kind of really easy to visualize what's changing. So this tells me that, we saw some unexpected changes. We saw these zones being added to this particular resource. The SKU capacity was increased from 1 to 3. This particular resource, the Cosmos DB account, was made zone redundant. And so looking at this, like, it's pretty clear to me that these are the changes I was expecting. There's nothing else that's changed that was unexpected. So as a developer, I can now run bash snapshot overwrite, which is just going to go and update that snapshot with the latest changes. So that's the kind of local developments use case for it. To give an example of how it could be useful in reviews, I'll switch to the GitHub repo I created for this. I've got 2 examples of pull requests, one of which where the developer remembered to update their snapshots, and one of which where the developer didn't remember to update their snapshots. So first of all, let's look at the example where the developer didn't update snapshots. So we have a set of infra file changes. There are no changes to the snapshot file. Because I have, if we go look at our GitHub workflow here, because I've configured this Bicep Snapshot tool to run here, this is basically going to fail the CI checks if any of those snapshots are different. So here my check has failed. If I'm the developer or if I'm someone reviewing this code, it's pretty clear to me that something isn't right. And I can go look at the output of this command, and I can go see like this is exactly, what was missing from the PR. So I can see that basically the developer made a set of changes but didn't actually check in the snapshot to validate what changes were being made. And then finally, if we go look at an example where the developer has checked in the snapshot, as a reviewer, it's pretty clear that everything is passing, the check is green, and I can now go and look at the snapshot. And so here's where I think the benefit of this format comes in. I can see very clearly as the reviewer exactly what has changed. I can see, I'm not looking at modules, and I'm not looking at variables. I'm looking at actual concrete values, and I'm looking at resource IDs. So I can see for this resource ID here, this Cosmos DB account, zone redundancy has been enabled. I can see for this API management resource, the SKU capacity has been increased. So as a reviewer, this just gives me an extra level of confidence that, even though everything looks right in the Bicep param and the Bicep files themselves, I'm able to actually verify like these are the actual changes that are going to occur to the resources in my Azure subscription as a result of deploying. So that was a very quick overview of snapshot testing in Bicep. Like I said, it's going to be available in the upcoming Bicep 0.36 release as an experimental feature. So you should be able to access that yourself as soon as it's available. I think right now it's fairly speculative, and so I'm interested in hearing feedback on where people find this useful or if people don't find it useful. So please try it out and give me your feedback. I will say that for some of the more complicated sets of deployments we have on my team in particular, we find, we have kind of similar capabilities with baselines that we generate for infrastructure changes. And we found that extremely useful for just being able to have confidence that these kind of complex changes in production are going to occur the way that we thought they were. Thanks, that's all I had.
Any questions that Anthony you want to answer from the chat for the call, or any other context you want to share based on the types of questions we're getting?
No, I think this is great. I've been trying to just keep up with the chat, and I don't want to take too much time because you've heard me speak enough, I think, on this call.
Okay. I think there's a lot of nuance on like what the snapshot is versus what the compiled ARM template is versus what if is, but encourage you to kind of try it out and explore what is possible here. We think it really could make a big difference for the kind of the most complex Bicep projects. So curious to see what you guys do with it. Stephanie, did you want to take back over?
Yes, I was actually gonna point over to Angel. I think he has answers for both of these.
Hey folks, hope volume is adequate for everyone. Let's see, in order, what if without write permissions? So that's something that has been rolled out already fully. The support in PowerShell has been released. CLI support is still in progress. But that's kind of where we stand with what if without write permissions. And if anyone has specific questions on how to set it up or what more can you do with that kind of capability, feel free to reach out to me, Johnny Eskew as well, who's on the chat, and we're happy to answer any questions, or we can even just set up time to meet with you and kind of take a look at how you're integrating what if. Beyond that, what if is going to just continue evolving and getting better and better. So one of the second things that's been a long time coming is the short circuiting fix. For those of you who are not aware of what this means, to give you a quick context review, when we do nested deployments, a lot of times in Bicep, this is a consequence or just a result of using Bicep modules. There's a different deployment that gets kicked behind the scenes, and those kind of build on top of each other. What if was short circuiting at a certain point with the nesting that was occurring? So you were getting a what if result, but it wasn't necessarily the full what if result of everything that's in your template. So we have since fixed that, and this is now rolled out to a set of preview tenants that we onboarded. These folks signed up in a form that we shared in the previous community calls. They are all now seeing the benefit of this new what if. Our plan for the global rollout of this is going to be end of June. So 6/30, exactly a month from now, a month and 2 days. We are basically waiting this time period just to see any bugs and issues that come up. If any, we have the time to roll back and make the fix as needed before actually making this globally available to everyone. So that kind of time period for us is more so for safety in terms of if there's any regression that we can make sure we don't break everyone all at once on accident. So that is currently where the short circuiting fix is at. For those of you onboarded that already see the fix, I think you'd be able to comment on the change you see there already. You should be getting a more robust what if result. For those of you that have not been onboarded and you don't see the change, you should be seeing that by the end of that next month. We're not able to onboard any new IDs until that global rollout happens. It's something we're kind of discussing. It's do we have enough time to roll out a new set of preview IDs or not? That rollout of the preview IDs takes about 2 weeks, and that's kind of a arbitrary number. Our deployment trains can get impacted by other things, and that ends up making it a bit longer. So we're holding off on onboarding more folks and just attempt to make this globally available for everyone. But yeah, if anyone is super keen on I need this sooner or what have you, please feel free to reach out to me and Johnny directly, and we can have that discussion. That is updates on those two, but if there's any other questions on what if all up, feel free to drop those in the chat and we'll answer them as we go.
Cool. Thanks, Angel. I think we can move on from this slide then. Emily?
Yes. So yeah, this one is kind of from all of us. So we just wanted to close off the call saying thank you to everyone. So if you want to hit the next slide, Alex. So this is every single person that's contributed to the Bicep repo, including the bots, with the Anthony was mentioning in the chat. So you should see your name on the list if you've contributed. Thank you so much if you've submitted code. If you've contributed by joining these calls and just using Bicep, that is awesome as well. We just wanted to give a special shout out to those that have contributed to the code base. But thank you so much to everybody on the screen and everybody on the call and everybody watching the recording. And then I'm going to hand it to Stephanie for the next slide, who is going to share a few really special kudos. Stephanie, you're muted.
Yes, hello. Sorry, it's taking forever to unmute. But yeah, I wanted to call out a few special contributors that we are really appreciative of, who have done the most for our team and our community. Freak person, he has been giving a lot of speeches about Bicep and Azure in general, and he's written the book on the side, Getting Started with Bicep Infrastructure as Code on Azure. We love him. He's always reaching out to us, asking, letting us know for more speaking engagements that he has, and asking us if there's anything he could do for us, which is really great. We love Freak. Mikolai and Simon are our two core maintainers right now. They have been showing up to almost all of our Bicep discussions and Bicep triage meetings, giving us a lot of feedback about almost every single issue and giving their thoughts. And we really appreciate that. It's always good to have two external people in these meetings to help us out and let us know, the user standpoint, which we really appreciate. Stefan Lapointe and Stefan Ivemo were our previous core maintainers. I'm not sure if they're still in the space anymore. They contributed, like Mikai and Simon, in our Bicep discussion meetings internally, committed a couple of PRs as well. Really appreciate it. I'm not sure if they're still here. If you are, we still think about you. We still care about you. We're happy for the contributions you made for us in the past couple years. And Stan, we've worked with him directly several times. He's created a lot of issues for us, and has been able to point out so many bugs and so many enhancements and features. We really appreciate you too. We're very happy that we have someone who is letting us know all the issues that are happening so we could prioritize them and just know. So we really appreciate that. And lastly, John and Dan, John Lucas and Dan Rios, they created this LinkedIn Bicep group, the Azure Bicep users, which has about 2,300 members. This is amazing. I see that they're constantly posting on this group, and we really appreciate that. People externally creating all these spaces for our community, and we really appreciate that. We are so happy to have you guys. Just wanted to say special thank you to all of you on this list.
Yeah, and another special thank you. We have a few of the core Bicep team here from the very first days at Microsoft on the call. So shout out to Alex Frankel, Anthony Martin, Marcin. I'm sorry, Marcin, I don't think I've said your last name out loud before. I should have prepped that one. Stephanie Yen and Shenglong Li. Those are the meet the team people that I have from the first slide that a teammate shared with me. Alex and Anthony and Marcin, please add more in the chat if I've missed them. But thank you all to all of you as well.
Is there one more thank you? Oh, that's what I was supposed to go to. Oh,
all
this
good.
is the classic. This is a throwback slide from like one of our first community calls.
Yeah, Stephanie shared that one with me.
Nice.
Awesome. And then drum roll to the next slide. This is one of my favorite parts of the call. One of our community members, Freak, reached out with a Bicep game that he had created for the anniversary. I've had a lot of fun playing with it. My high score is 12 so far. Before that, I was at 5 for a while. So glad to kind of push past that boundary, but this is incredibly fun. And every time you score a point, you'll see a new Bicep fun fact. So thank you for being brave, Alex, and doing this live. Wow, you're doing much better than me.
All the years of playing video games have finally played off.
Yeah, you just surpassed my first 10 tries at this game.
I'll just let it scroll infinitely and see how long it goes for. And Frank, you vibe coded this one, right? I think is what I heard.
Yeah, it's entirely prompt created, right? So I did not write a single code for it. It was inspired by a session that I watched at Build last week. And it was all prompt created using GitHub Copilot and VS Code within 15 minutes, including all of the graphics and all of the did you knows and things like that. So I had a lot of fun creating it. So thanks so much for sharing it here, Emily. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I wanted to save it to the end so that folks could now spend the rest of their Thursdays playing the game.
Yeah.
And then Alex, there was just one more closing slide on the birthday. As much as I'd love to see you play Snake for the rest of the day as well. Just a call to action to please follow us on social media if you're not already. We really appreciate your engagement. Stephanie called out the LinkedIn group, the community group. I think that has the most engagement of these platforms up there. So keep commenting in there. And then follow us on X and Blue Sky, where we also post updates. We posted a tweet on May 12th, our official birthday. We post community call updates and reminders. And please like them, repost them, and follow us.
Awesome. Just checking if there's any other slides. Just before we get into the Q&A, I just want to say another thank you. I mean, this when we started the project, we had no had no idea how it was going to go, and the only reason we're still doing this is because the community stepped up and was super engaged really right away. And it was you guys are a constant well of just amazing information and insights, and you guys keep showing up, and we keep doing our best to ship as often as we can the best product that we can. But really just appreciate everyone who's done anything over the last 5 years. I think we will get another 5 years at least, but we'll see what happens. So thanks again. Now we can get into the Q&A with our last 0 minutes remaining. I can't see the chat very well if there are any questions.
I'm not seeing many questions right now. I'm seeing some fun comments, but no chat questions yet.
Cool.
Token-based auth for container registry coming soon.
There's no, the only update is that, I mean, maybe Marcin, you may have the most context on the ORAS CLI and what's going on there.
Yeah, so there's some progress being made on, because one of basically the short story is that we need a package that is for .NET that supports basically OCI registries, like basically a client to interact with them. Because right now we're using an ACR specific client. And there's been some progress on the ORAS for .NET effort that is meant to provide that SDK to us. I need to follow up and see if they've actually started it. They were supposed to start in April. So we're going to go back and follow up and maybe give an update next time.
So hopefully progress goes well there, and that really will enable us to deliver this. I don't think the work to deliver it is so dramatic once we have that component. Is that fair to say, Marcin?
That's right, but we do have some design work to figure out how the login experience will work with token-based auth. But yeah, it should not be like a lot of work.
And then I see Merdad asked about the Radius project. So the Radius project is another open source project that uses Bicep to express its application model. Maybe we can throw a link to it in here. They originally forked the Bicep repo to create their own like Radius version of Bicep, always knowing that they would sync it back up with upstream at some point. They did that probably about 6 months ago, I would guess, maybe more. So now it's just one repo once again. In the Radius project, they're continuing to kind of develop that out. I think Mark Brzezinovich presented it at Build last week, so there's probably some good content on there. Okay, we're over time, so I think we'll probably wrap it up here. But thank you again, everyone, for all the work and all the contributions over the years. Thank you, Emily, Stephanie, Sydney, I think as well, for putting together all the 5-year content in particular. I know that was a whole nother pile of work to put that together. Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.